Morning, everybody, and welcome to the AI and Microsoft webinar from Enhance today. So today you're going to be basically presented to by myself, James, and Curtis. So Curtis, do you want to give yourself a little bit of introduction before we get going, if that's okay?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Curtis. I'm a consultant with the team at Enhance, and I have been spending far too much of my own time researching and playing with all these new AI technologies that we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, and I'm James Glover, so I'm CTO, so I'm basically the geek who also likes playing with Power BI, and hopefully Daphne on my Photoshop remains quiet for the next 25 minutes. But Curtis will be mainly going through this demo today, but any questions, please pop them into the Q&A. I'll try and keep on top of them. But if you don't want to do it in the Q&A, just drop us an email at the end of the event and we can kind of go from there, if that's all right. So Curtis, I'll just step through the slides and hopefully this should be interesting to everybody on the call.
Okay, cool. So to kick us off, I first want to take us back a little bit and talk about where AI has come from and where it really started. Now, AI has been being talked about a lot in the last sort of 6 to 12 months, but it actually goes back a lot further than that. And really, AI started with the code breakers at Bletchley Park, building the Turing machine to break Enigma. 10 years after that machine was built, Alan Turing developed the Turing test, which is a test to check for machine intelligence, and basically a way for us to quantify how close to human intelligence machines and artificial intelligence is. In 1955, John McCarthy coined the term artificial intelligence for the first time. Then there was a big break for about 30-40 years where not really much in the AI space happened. There was a personal computing revolution happening through the 70s and 80s and into the 90s. But very interestingly, in 1997, for the first time, Deep Blue, an IBM developed supercomputer, essentially an early form of AI, beat Garry Kasparov, one of the world's best ever chess players at chess. In 2002, one of my favorite events in the AI calendar, Roomba was released, which was the artificially intelligent vacuum cleaner. Then in 2008, Apple announced Siri. So the personal assistant that we're all probably used to having on our iPhones came out in 2008. And this is really the first kind of at-scale use of AI for the general masses. In 2011, IBM Watson, the question answering AI, was introduced to the world. And this is the first time that we get introduced the idea of a natural language processing computer. So this is where we stop necessarily entering code as prompts and rather start using our own human language in order to prompt the computers to do some things like ask questions and getting answers. In 2014, the world was introduced to Alexa, something that we can't live without, and I've just said her name and I'm sure she's about to be set off. I do have one at home. So this really introduced us to the idea of having AI in the home. In 2018, very interestingly, AMPA, an AI software program, is the first AI that's credited with a songwriting credit for a singer-songwriter called Taryn Southern, who I'd never heard of before, but it was a very interesting fact when I was doing my research ready for this. And then the big one, the most recent one, ChatGPT, in November 2022 is released, generally available to the world, and has kickstarted a brand new revolution in AI-driven productivity. And we're going to talk a little bit now about ChatGPT before we get into the stuff that Microsoft is doing, because ChatGPT is really where this revolution has been kicked off. So some of you who are attending may have had a little bit of a play with ChatGPT. If you haven't, don't worry, we're going to do a little demo in a minute. But it introduced the world to this idea of natural language processing, and really it kickstarted this revolution of us being able to ask computers questions using our own language and our own prompts and getting really good, detailed, high quality answers back. It's designed to understand all kinds of different questions, also all kinds of different languages, and has been trained on over, James, you're going to have to help me out with the exact figure here. I think GTP3 was trained on over 1.5 billion different parameters and data sets. And GTP4, which is the one that's getting built into all these great new tools that are coming on Microsoft, has been trained on over 1 trillion.
Yeah, it's a very, very big number. It's too hard to work out in your own head. It's huge.
But you can ask it a question about a vast different range of things. So you could ask it about how to write code. You can ask it how to take a law exam. In fact, ChatGTP4 has passed the US bar, and also I can't remember what the exact term is, but the medical exam that you need to take to become a qualified doctor has passed both of those exams. And so it's really cool, some of the things that it knows and that you can ask it. It's just an incredibly powerful tool to really improve how we work with computers and improve our productivity and efficiency when we're working with these kinds of softwares. Now, James, if you could take over here and tell us a little bit about what's going on with the Microsoft and OpenAI partnership.
Yeah, of course I can, Curtis. So the Microsoft OpenAI is a really, really interesting scenario. So OpenAI was its own business, own entity in its own right, and was doing a lot of work in the AI space. But based on the numbers Curtis just saying in terms of the amount of data it had to consume, its biggest issue was paying for the computing power to run the machine. So actually OpenAI started life on Google Cloud hardware and AWS hardware and a mix of other platforms. And Microsoft came along with a £1 billion investment on the initial round to basically fund the computing power required to teach a model of this size. And as of last year, they've come out with a second investment now of 10 billion, which effectively makes them primary owners of the whole technology. But just bear in mind that 10 billion is just what's required to run the machine. So that's just how big a model we're talking here. It's 10 billion power in compute spend they're needing to kind of keep it alive and to keep it running. So that's just this, when we talk large language models, when you put it into an investment sum like that, that kind of gives you an idea of just how big a beast it is. And once that language model's been learned, that's what's now happening in AWS Azure, and sorry, purely Azure, and it's allowing the scale to grow and grow and grow. So it's the Azure backend processing all of this to make it get bigger over time, because large language models are just going to consume more and more data. And once we get into the land of private large language models, which we'll get onto later in Copilot, it's taking that layer and then overlaying an additional training model of your own personal data in your Office 365 tenant. So it's a bit of a beast, and that's kind of how it all kind of came about. So over to you, Curtis.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that the gamble that Microsoft took over a year ago on OpenAI has certainly paid off in terms of the AI arms race that is currently going on, mainly between Microsoft, who, as James says, functionally owns OpenAI, and also Google. Microsoft is leagues ahead of Google at the moment in terms of this AI arms race. But what's really interesting as well is how does all of this work? Now, one of the things that this new AI technology is very good at is explaining complicated topics, but in simple ways that even a 5-year-old can understand. And one of my favorite prompts to put into ChatGPT when I'm trying to explain a complex topic, maybe to one of our customers, is to say, how does AI work? But explain it to a 5-year-old. So the way it works is first by using natural language processing, or NLP. So it understands what you're saying, and it uses this large language model and this natural language processing to transform what you're saying into a prompt that it can understand. It would be like if you were talking to someone who understood a different language and you were using a translator in between the two of you to understand what each other is saying. That's effectively what natural language processing is doing. It's passing your natural language prompt over to the large language model, which is where all of this fun, complicated AI stuff goes on, where it works out what you've asked and an answer to try and give it. The NLP acts as a translator and a go-between you and that large AI model. What's happening then when it gets the AI model? In simple terms, first an AI model has to be pre-trained. So we mentioned that ChatGPT 3 was trained on about 1.5 billion different parameters and data sets. ChatGPT 4 is in the trillions. But you're loading all of that data in and training it and telling it, if you ask it, what's 2 plus 2? You train the model to know that 2 plus 2 equals 4. That's just one of the ideas behind these parameters that it gets trained on. Then it gets transformed. These transformers are where all the really complicated stuff that's very, very hard to explain and understand what goes on under the model, where it's then transforming the prompt and the answer into an understanding from its large data bank what it can do. It fine-tunes that response using what's called a reward model. I think of this very much like where I've been training my puppy. You ask it what's 2 plus 2, it answers 4. It gets a digital treat, as it were. And then it provides the answer and replies not only with the answer, but also it's been trained to reply with those answers in human-like responses. So not just saying 2 plus 2 is 4, but 2 plus 2 is 4, and here's why 2 plus 2 equals 4. It's a very simplistic example, but this really becomes very helpful as a learning tool when you're trying to learn maybe how to code, for example. It explains not only the answer that it's given, but also how those different parts of the answer maybe works. There's some really complicated explanation on the next slide, if you would, please, James.
Yeah, there we go.
About how NLPs work. Now, as amazing as this technology is and as simple as it is to use, which we'll show you in just a minute, there is some really complex technology going on underneath the surface in terms of the training and prompt response. There's built-in security. So James, if you wouldn't mind just giving us a quick explanation of how developers like OpenAI, Microsoft and Google make sure that these AIs aren't going to give us inappropriate responses.
Yeah, so it's an interesting context, this. So obviously it is learning from lots and lots of data sources, and not all data sources are accurate and not all data sources are correct. There's actually a couple of legal cases at the moment where they've accidentally accused people of doing things they didn't do because the amount of press out there claiming it happened when it didn't actually happen is what's causing it now. So actually, believe it or not, they're having to put a layer of "you will not respond with" on top of all of this. So we've got this great clever logic, but then there's a big kind of blocking list on top that are very much like ethical AI when we had robotics. There's an ethical layer that sits in there to stop things happening, to remove profanity, to remove anything that's legal. So actually what's happening now is you start to see a string of cases of what it's not allowed to talk about. And what's going to be very interesting in the next couple of years for me and Kirsten in the tech community is how different countries handle this. So, for example, as it stands today, the Italian government are looking at blocking OpenAI until they understand how they can control it. Other European countries are doing it as well. So it's going to get an interesting legal debate. Luckily, most of the UK and North America are firmly on the side of let this grow a bit and see what happens. So we should be closer to the cutting edge than other countries, but it's just something to bear in mind that it's new, it's scary. It's a bit like inventing the motor vehicle back in the days. People thought it was kind of the devil, and this is going to be the same approach of OpenAI, where people just don't quite believe it's true. Therefore, we'll try to legislate it. Is probably the best way to describe it, Curtis.
Yeah, there's a lot going on with regards to securing it, but moving away from the scary stuff, let's show an example of how this can actually work. So some of you may have already used ChatGPT and had a bit of a play with it. If you haven't, don't worry, we'll take a look at that now. So what I've done is I've prepared a couple of examples for us here. We're going to view in real time. So first off, some of the things that AI can help you with is generating content. Now that could be content for an email, or that could be content for social media like LinkedIn. So I'm going to ask ChatGPT here, if you could write me a LinkedIn post explaining the benefits of Copilot to small and medium businesses. And it's going away, it's referring to all the information that it's got in that large model, and it's generating a response for me in real time now that I could then go and the first thing I'd want to do is first check it. And this is one of the points that we're going to touch on a little bit later on, is as amazing as this technology is, it's still a technology, and there's no replacement for a human brain and a human set of eyes. So although this is a great bit of content that I could very easily go and post on my LinkedIn right now, and I'm tempted to do so because it's actually seems to be very well written, I do need to go and sense check it first. There may be some mistakes, there may be, very unlikely there's going to be spelling errors, but there may be some informational and technical mistakes in there. I could also ask it to go and write me some code. So for example, in my day job, quite often I have to write quite a bit of JavaScript for some of the things that we want to do. So I could ask it to write me some JavaScript to change the display property. I should have copied and pasted these of a field in Dynamics 365 using the form context. Now I'm with my prompt, I'm purposefully telling it to use certain JavaScript libraries that I as a developer know about to make sure that it's using the most up-to-date and supported methods of doing these types of things. But you can see there that it's generated me a response in JavaScript that I could go and copy and paste and use in Dynamics to fulfill this requirement. But it's also telling me a bit about what's going on here and what these settings actually do, and some of the variables and things that I need to change. So it's an excellent tool for developers and for coders. But of course, as I mentioned with the social media, it doesn't necessarily replace those developers and coders, but rather just makes them more efficient. There's no true alternative to what humans can do. I mentioned earlier that one of my favorite things to do is explain it like I'm 5. And how do quantum computers work? Incredibly complicated subject. How could I explain this maybe to one of my young step kids? Explain what quantum computers are, what this amazing new technology that doesn't use bits like ones and zeros, but instead uses things called qubits. And how can I explain that in the most simple terms and help even a child understand that, and take such a complicated subject with so much information and boil it down to something that even a child could understand? And it's given me quite an interesting response here as to how quantum computers work. Now, one of the tricks that has been developed by various different communities is the idea of prompt generation and tricks that you can use to ask ChatGPT and ask AI models questions in certain ways to get certain responses. So I can say, act as a Dynamics 365 consultant, create some dummy data for my contacts using fictional characters. So I've told it to act as something. I'm giving it a task that I want it to complete, and then I can tell it to show that and format that in a certain way. So format the results as a table. So how you can construct your prompts and the way that you ask questions to these large language models like ChatGPT, like the OpenAI Azure service, can vastly change the results that you get from these types of softwares and what you can use. I'm very happy with what it's generated. Maybe I want a couple more rows, so I could that these AI models are also aware of things that you've asked before and things that are in the chat history. So I could ask, can you create 10 more rows for me? And it's aware of the question that I've asked before, and it'll go and create some more rows of data for me that I could then use to import into our system, or I could ask it to add more columns to this output and use certain types of things. I could ask it to change pretty much anything about what it's generated. I'm in control of what it's creating. Back to you, James.
Okay, let me just reshare my screen, Curtis. So give me just a second. Okay, hopefully everybody's got my screen again. Brilliant.
Yeah.
So as Curtis said, he's kind of shown you what OpenAI is, and I think you've covered a lot of this, haven't you, in what you've just been talking about there, Curtis? And or do you want to kind of talk through this a bit more?
I think it's worth touching on, certainly,
Yeah.
as to what the Azure OpenAI service offers, as opposed to the generally available ChatGPT by OpenAI.
Okay, yeah, and so the Azure OpenAI is basically, it's taken the learning, it's taken the model, and basically put it into a process where you own and control it. So think of one as open source, and think of this as we're putting it in a box that you can then make it learn on additional data sets that are specific to you. So where the Azure OpenAI one comes into play really is if you've got large knowledge base, if you've got large data sets about your industry, about what particular cause you're using, you can overlay that additional training model on top of the large language model. So it's giving us basically your own version to play with. So it's got that beast of an engine behind the scenes, but then you can overlay additional data in there that's applicable for your industry. So again, that really helps in kind of doing that. But
So,
where it gets, sorry, carrying process.
So does it have access to my documents in my OneDrive and in my SharePoint?
Only when we go to Copilot, which we get to later. So Azure OpenAI is like a paid for service that you could do a very large model to resell those services. So you could resell a model that's learnt about an industry or learnt about a sector. But the Copilot OpenAI, which we're going to get onto later, is in context of me as an individual, in context of my office, my teams, my day job. So
the Azure OpenAI is like ChatGPT, but for me and for my organization, and it learns about my organization.
Yeah, yes, exactly that.
Awesome.
So carry on, Chris, sorry.
Oh, that's really cool. It opens up a lot of potential there for expanding and creating some custom AI capabilities, I'd imagine.
Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So where we're getting interesting now is the Copilot piece. And why Copilot is interesting is it knows who you are. So a great example of Copilot here is ask me, I could ask Teams what important information I missed yesterday. And it will go through everybody that was talking about stuff that I had permission to read and see and give me a summary of what happened in the business yesterday. I could also go into Word and say, write me a document to ask for new business of this customer. And I could give it a previous pitch deck I've used with a different customer, tell it which customer I'm looking at in Dynamics 365, and it will harvest data from 2 discrete locations, use a large language model, and write a new letter. Just like Curtis asking it to write a LinkedIn post, it's writing it contextually in the form of who I am, where the data is, and the only data that I've got permission to see. And that's where it gets really, really interesting. So being able to do Copilot in context of data I personally own and nobody else has permission to use. Sorry, over to you, Curtis.
So if I asked it to maybe go and write a newsletter based on some documents that I've got access to and maybe a bit of data in our Dataverse environment, could it go and do that?
Yes, so that's what's coming. So we're going to start with Office graph-based data. So in the next couple of months, we'll have Office graph-based data. So Teams information, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, all that's going to be consumed in. And then we're going to start getting Dynamics 365 and other Dynamics 365 data sets pulled in as well. So at the moment, we've got D365 using D365 data and Office using Office data, and those two will be blended in the next 6 to 12 months.
So do you think maybe we could take a look at this in action and see what this Copilot might mean for some of our customers?
Well, all we could do really here is a video. So one of the really things that annoys Curtis and me the most is we don't always have access to these toys just yet, because this is such a fast moving space that we can't always see the toys available to us. And now you've made me paranoid, Curtis, that I reshared my screen without sharing my audio, because we've dropped in and dropped out. So I'm just going to quickly reshare my screen, and just in case, because the last thing you want to do is play a video and nobody to be able to hear anything. So give me just a second.
James and I have been banging on Microsoft's door over the last couple of months since this Copilot announcement, saying, please, please let us have a look at it. But they're keeping it very tightly under lock and key. I think at the moment there's only 20 organizations that are in their preview program. They're planning to expand that soon, I understand, but they're still keeping it very close to the chest.
So they're opening it to 600 organizations, and each one needs to justify a reason for it. Okay, so let's just play this, and hopefully Curtis has queued us up in the right place for me. There we go.
I cannot wait to get Copilot. There's so many cool things that we just saw that it can do. So James, we'll go through a couple of those here. We have the ability with Copilot to compose emails, but not just compose emails and ask it, can you write an email reply to this customer talking about this thing? But as we saw, it can reference documents that are in our organization to draw information from those and format those in certain ways. James, how can it help me maybe with some of my PowerPoint presentations?
Yeah, so ironically, PowerPoint's one of the ones that's had AI in for the longest in terms of looking at the data and suggesting imagery. So PowerPoint's always been leading the charge on AI, but now again, it's going to be in context. So we could actually ask it to create me a PowerPoint to sell something to a customer, tell it which customer it was, give it like a Word document you'd written to that customer in the past, and it will build you a deck. So it's going to be really quite scary in terms of the level it's doing.
I think it also for me it represents an opportunity to get access to a lot more of the tools that are available in things like PowerPoint. I know that Microsoft have said in the past that the majority of people only use about 10% of what these softwares like PowerPoint, Word and Excel are capable of. We're only scratching the surface, and AI can probably unlock all of the amazing tools that are available as part of these products.
Yeah, and even like the key thing for me is as a techie like Curtis, we don't like writing things down. We like talking and not necessarily writing lots. The note-taking ability we're going to get on some of these models is incredible. So we're getting that today, even on telephony, Teams telephony. It's going to write all of your notes for you, analyze the call, work out which parts of the conversation were important, and summarize them back to you. And that's massive. So sorry, Karen, Curtis.
So if I missed a meeting, would it be able to summarize the meeting for me?
Yeah, exactly that. So you're going to get a summary of the meeting, and more than that, it's going to suggest future appointments and future tasks and future phone calls you need to do. So it's going to be, you had a conversation with the person for 20 minutes, but in that conversation, you said you were going to call them back next Thursday. So let's create that meeting. You said you were going to find out about this topic for them. Let's create you a task. So those sort of things are really, really interesting.
Wow.
So it's going to do a lot around that to kind of really kind of learn. And just onto like the thing next to you at public speaking there, we've got a PowerPoint coach now that's looking at using large language models. So we're going to have so much of this all-encompassing AI that's going to gradually drip feed in. So it's going to be very, very interesting. It's just kind of, but I think what we're starting to realize from all of these tool sets is it's not trying to eliminate us, it's trying to assist us. So rather than us having to work out how to start a document, it's going to create that for us, and we're going to be proofreading and tailoring. So we're not going to take away the personality of the document, but what we are going to be doing is giving you a starter for 10. Rather than starting with a blank sheet of paper, you're starting with 3 pages of stuff that you might want to tweak and tailor. And I think that's the key. So I'm just realizing the time, Curtin, so we better get through some of these a bit quicker.
So maybe it's a good point now to take a quick look at what that Copilot AI might look like in something like Excel, which is something I use a lot to use data analytics.
Yeah.
James, if I realised this video's got the wrong timestamp, if you could skip back to 1750 in this video.
1750. Now you have set me a challenge, Curtis. 1 second. So let me just do that, and then that'll do. There you go.
Close enough.
At your fingertips. Say you need to analyze this quarter's sales results. You start by asking Copilot to analyze the data and give you 3 key trends. Within seconds, you've got what you need. But you want to drill in. You ask Copilot a follow-up question about one of the trends. Copilot creates a new sheet. This new sheet creates a sandbox to play in to better understand what's going on without modifying the data in the original sheet. This is a great example of how Copilot up-levels your skills, showing you how to break down the problem step by step. You ask Copilot to visualize what contributed to the decline in sales growth this period. Copilot adds a little color to make the problem jump off the page. Now, you want to dig deeper and ask a follow-up question. Copilot not only answers your question, it creates a simple model of the scenario. And it even asks you if you want to learn more about what it did with a step-by-step breakdown. Finally, you can ask it to create a graph of your projected model. Copilot turned a sea of data into clear insights and actions. Let me show you how Copilot can help you tackle your email.
James.
We all struggle.
Yeah.
So that's just one example of where Copilot is going to really revolutionize how we work with these office tools like Excel and other things like Word, PowerPoint, Outlook, Teams. But that's something that even for me, the analysis and the graphs and things that just created, that might have taken me, 3 or 4 hours to do previously, and a lot of Googling. There, it just looks so easy. She was just asking the question and getting the answer and popping it into the page.
Okay. Over to you, Curtis.
So what? I'll pose a question back to you, actually, James. So what might this mean for some of our customers that are attending this webinar now? What might Copilot and AI enable them to do in the future? We've already seen one example of things like data analysis, where that can take complex data analysis and make it very easy just by asking natural language questions. How might this improve something like marketing, for example, James?
Yeah, so marketing's really, really interesting. So because of the large language model now, marketing segmentation can actually be done by just speaking to your computer, which is quite scary. So effectively, rather than working out how to write a query, we'll be able to use a large language model to work out what you were describing and then transpose that to a relevant segment. So for example, I could say, give me all of my supporters who have given me X amount of money in the last 12 months and attended this event. I could physically ask it to do that, and it would know, based on the data structure within marketing, where the data points are and generate me the query and generate me the record set. So again, marketing like that, really, really interesting. And then I think social media, again, suggesting imagery, suggesting copy. So just like we did with curses and LinkedIn posts, those sorts of things are going to be really, really powerful. So it's an assistance, it's not a replacement. So again, really powerful in that way.
So the marketing could find me the people that I want to email just by using a natural language query. And then I could also build maybe an email or a newsletter that I wanted to send to them, again, by using a natural language query and getting us started along that process.
Yeah, exactly. So just conscious of time, curses, we'll go through some of these.
Yeah.
I think we've talked a lot of this, haven't we? We're not really going to be replaced. We're just going to be changed. So, and it's only going to improve.
I think it's fair to say, James, that with this AI revolution, those that pick it up and run with it are going to reap the benefits. It's not something that I foresee us being able to fight against. We've got to ride this wave, and those that do, it will prove to be a massive boon in terms of efficiency and productivity. But it doesn't, like we say, it doesn't replace the human element. So for example, like for me as a techie writing code and things, it's not going to replace me as a developer, but it needs me as an experienced developer with my human brain and my knowledge of, you know, how these systems work and best practices and things, to make sure that the code that it is writing for me to make me more efficient is still correct and in line with best practices and fits in with other bits of code in our organizations.
So I was just responding to the Q&A, Curtis, so I can't do that at the same time. There we go.
No problem. So are we going to be getting this built into Dynamics 365 as well? Are you still responding to the QA?
I respond to the QA, yeah. So Dynamics 365, yes, we're definitely getting it. In the next, we've already got it in Business Central for product integrations. We've got it in the last drop of Dynamics Marketing for segmentation purposes. We have it in Power Automate for building Power Automate processes, and it's only going to grow over time. So it's gradually going to be trickling in. That's the best way to think about it. And oh, sorry, how could I forget Viva Sales? So Viva Sales is the new client for working out how to respond to customers. Viva Sales is based on the Copilot engine. So all of this work is kind of working like that now.
Wow. So what's this Copilot in Dynamics 365 going to look like? You know, what can we expect when we get this amazing new tool in our Dynamics environments?
Well, I think the thing is, Curtis, it's not going to be in your face big Copilot button like we're going to see in Word, Excel, PowerPoint. It's going to be softer than that. It's going to be just leveraging the technology behind the scenes and guiding you. So it's not like in Word, Excel, PowerPoint, there's a big button. Yeah, that's how it's going to be. In the D365 space, it's going to be leveraging that tool set, but blending into the UI. So you won't even realize you're using a large language model. It's just aiding and assisting you. You'll be writing an email and it'll be telling you, by the way, you need to talk to them about this. By the way, you need to be talking to them about that. So it's going to be a much softer deployment, which I think is nicer. Because it will help with adoption. You're not having to think about a new toy. That toy is going to be present in the work and the workflow you're doing today.
Okay. Do you think maybe we could take a look at a quick video of what this is going to look like?
Yeah, of course we can. So I think you've got one queued up, hopefully, haven't you? There we go. I think this one is Viva Sales, isn't it?
Yes.
Brilliant. Okay, so let's just play this one.
9 out of 10 workers said that automation and AI-powered tools would help them focus on meaningful work. Introducing Microsoft Dynamics 365 Copilot. AI-powered assistance to get more done with less effort and take on the tasks that keep you from the work that matters. From summarizing meeting notes, complete with action items and follow-up dates, to helping you get started with emails and content. Whether you're a seller following up with a proposal, a marketer promoting a new product, or a service agent providing world-class customer support, Copilot is there when you need it to suggest responses, documents, and ideas in the moment, and get help just by asking in a conversational way. Copilot features can help write a compelling product description for online stores, or help find the right audience simply by typing who they want to reach. Copilot can even help with your supply chain by predicting risks before they become a problem, and provide clear steps to take action. Copilot is built into Dynamics 365 using artificial intelligence developed responsibly by Microsoft, empowering employees to deliver better customer experiences and drive efficiency across the organization. Dynamics 365 Copilot, the world's first AI copilot in both CRM and ERP.
Really exciting stuff coming, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely.
9 out of 10.
Oh, sorry.
So we've had a couple of questions in the Q&A, James. I'll pose a couple to you. So one from Paul. He said a while ago he saw that Viva Sales is helping with email custom responses. Is that using Copilot or is that something different?
Yes, so it is Copilot. So the custom response is an element of Viva Sales, is a blend of Copilot and some other technology. Yeah, so it's really interesting, that one. So and again, Viva Sales is doing that bit of dumbing down Copilot, so you don't really know you're consuming it. It's just aiding you, which is which I personally think is a nicer way to work.
Cool. Brett's asked, is there a time period for training the model for an organization, or is it the Microsoft Graph effectively the model of your data that's ready to be utilized already by Copilot?
Yeah, it's exactly that. So Microsoft Graph is their all-encompassing metaverse of describing your data as part of your Office 365 estate. So Graph has been around for a number of years now, and Graph can be queried and analyze stuff that's going on in the whole of your Microsoft ecosystem. So because that technology is established, it's built, it's been around for a number of years, all Copilot is effectively doing is overlaying Graph data with the OpenAI model to generate the tool set. And there's some really interesting things around that space that's happening now in terms of how it's learning. And the nicest thing is when you actually look at architecturally how it's been built, just as Curtis was prompting it saying as a Dynamics 365 consultant, as he was writing some ChatGPT stuff earlier on, that's all Copilot's doing. It's saying, as a person who knows this data from Office, do this. So it's using the same engine, but automating it secretly behind the scenes.
Wow. Really powerful.
Yeah.
Paul asked, and I'll take this one, will Copilot be part of Power BI as well? Now, at the moment, that's not the Copilot for Power BI hasn't been announced. But if I was a betting man, I certainly would be putting money on it coming in the future and being integrated as part of that product. There's already some cool AI visuals and AI enabled analysis that's available as part of Power BI. But in terms of specifically integrating Copilot into Power BI, it's not been announced yet. But like I said, I'd be very surprised if it doesn't come in the future. Another one, we've got an anonymous one here, James. Is Viva Sales only available to be installed on the Outlook web app, or can it be used on desktop Outlook?
It's available in all forms of Outlook, and Viva Sales is going to be is now as of last month, it's included as part of your Dynamics 365 license. So there is going to be a differentiation between a Power Apps user and a Dynamics 365 user. If you're only a Power Apps user, you can actually purchase Viva Sales independently as well. So they're definitely trying to push this out even more. And dare I say a swear word, Viva Sales will even work with Salesforce. So it's not just purely Dynamics, it's an engine to leverage Copilot across data.
I can't believe you said the S word.
Yeah.
It's the last chance for people to get their questions in. The last question I've got at the moment is from Adele. She says, I need this now. When can I get it?
And again, so we have nominated a couple of customers for preview access, and we should be seeing more consumer-based access in the next 3 to 6 months.
In terms of general availability, do we have any idea, James, of when that might be coming, or is it all speculation at the moment?
All speculation, but what I will say is we talked a lot around the cost of running the beast, how much Azure consumption, how much Azure spend is happening this. So expect the Dynamics 365 Copilot things to be included as part of your license spend, but think of the Office 365 components as maybe Microsoft might need to monetize it. So there might be a premium version to get all of the toys in the future, purely because of the amount of compute power that's actually going on to generate some of this stuff. And that's what we're still in the grey about in terms of what is free with the Office tools compared to what's free with the Dynamics 365 tools.
Okay, we did just get one last one there from Brett. He's asked, are there any plans for Power Apps integration as well?
Yeah, so we're getting Copilot in elements of Power Apps around teaching, helping us write forms, helping us build Power Automates, and we will get additional things. So one of the nice things about the OpenAI piece is, and sorry, the Azure OpenAI piece, we can consume it via Flow. So actually we can consume this whole model in Power Automate, and actually you could be writing data in CRM and it using Azure OpenAI to give you data back in a box. So there's nothing to stop us using it even for case management or phone calls coming into the business. So we've got lots and lots of options there.
Okay,
Right,
last one's not a question, but Samantha said it's been a great session to introduce us to the exciting capabilities of Copilot. Thank you so much for running this.
Yeah.
I think now's the best time to say thank you very much for you guys for attending. James, have you got anything left to say before we wrap up?
No, I think we're all good, Curtis. So I hope everybody enjoyed themselves today. But any other questions, please just drop an email to hello@mhance.com or drop an email directly to myself or Curtis. We don't mind.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Take
Louis.
care. Bye.
Bye.